Okay, it is Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. That can mean just one thing. I was not able to record this yesterday. Normally, we do these on Wednesday afternoons at 3 o'clock Eastern. Yesterday, I was not able to do this, so we're doing it today, or this week, I should say, on a Thursday. But what I do like to do once a week is put a spotlight on what's new over at www.goRIA.com. Now, what's new this week is a brand new podcast, and I had the chance to speak with Nate Lenz, who you'll probably know is the co-founder and CEO of Concurrent. And what we spoke about is a great topic and something we cover probably a good 2 or 3 times a year, even on goRIA, because it is kind of an evolving story and something we've been covering for years, which is tuck or no tuck. Now, for those of you out there that are Seinfeld fans like myself, it's an old Seinfeld reference. But what we're really getting at is when you are looking to go independent, go RIA, you have really two main options. You could either build your own or you can tuck into an established firm. And what's great about the RIA space, one of the many things I love, is optionality. So if you are inclined to, roll up your sleeves and build your own, sort of what I did with Sovereign, there's a lot of great resources, a lot of partners that will help you do that. If you don't want to get into the nuts and bolts and build, and you just want to be an advisor with more independence, probably a higher payout, then you could also tuck in. And there's a number of options there. And that's really the point we're making with this. The contrast I like to draw is if you want to go the wirehouse route, there's maybe a handful of choices. If you want to go the IBD route, independent broker dealer, there's probably a good dozen choices to choose from. But if you want to tuck into an RIA, as opposed to building, and that's very doable too, a lot of partners there. But if you wanted to tuck in, there's hundreds, literally 200-300 options of RIAs that you could choose from, and you could probably find one that's pretty darn close to what you would have built yourself. And that's what we talk about here on this particular episode. So here's a little taste of what Nate and I spoke about,
To how they
and
access
give
investment
it a
products
listen.
and solutions and support offerings, we're doing our job. So in the tuck or no tuck world, I think we're big advocates of tuck. But I think it definitely depends on what the firm is hoping to accomplish and what type of support that they're ultimately looking for as they take the next step in the evolution of their business.
Yep. So I think that's a great way to frame this. And for sure that is the spectrum, right? So there's the most captive, right? And I think to your point, the banks probably are the most, and the close second might be the wirehouses and even the IBDs. And I know both of us kind of came from the IBD channel, actually the same one, in fact. And, as I like to say about the IBDs, and I've got nothing but great things to say about Raymond James. I was there for
Yep.
20 years. And, but, comma, I don't care which IBD it is. It's just the nature of IBDs and how they have to be, which is you are absolutely, positively, 100% independent right up until you want to do something they don't want you to do.
Sure.
Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, too, especially how the IBD space has grown, they might have anywhere from 5 to now 30,000 advisors, depending on which one you're talking about, right? So I think at its core, there's an element of they have to manage the lowest common denominator just from a risk management perspective. So you're dealing with that. You also have in an IBD world, even though you are a registered rep and an IAR, that FINRA broker dealer compliance and supervisory mindset of kind of black or white definitely, I think, overpowers
Yep.
the advisory side. And so again, when you're starting to manage that number of registered reps across a variety of types of business, to your point, I don't think you're left with any choice but to manage the lowest common denominator. But what I think is becoming more and more apparent is the structural differences between the BD space and the RIA space when it comes to being able to take on outside capital. Because one of the things that ultimately led to our departure from the IBD space was really, and again, there's nothing wrong with the platform. It's a phenomenal, Ray J, we share that background. It's a phenomenal platform. But structurally speaking, in order for us to continue our growth trajectory, we needed to bring on outside equity capital. And when you start to try to convince a compliance department, supervisory department that, unregistered entities buying into other unregistered entities that derive a portion of their business from commissions, all of a sudden you can imagine how, heads start to explode. So I think what you're seeing is like with the number of, private equity flowing into the space and really capital from all durations coming into the space, I think you're just seeing some meaningful structural differences between operating under a broker dealer and corporate RIA framework versus the optionality that's available to you in the fully independent side of the house.
Yeah, completely agree with that. And again, it's not that they're bad guys, right? They just have, and it's interesting that you said lowest common denominator. Kids have said the same exact thing when we were having a podcast about marketing as an RIA, right? Now, this is not to say that marketing in the RIA space is like the Wild West. You could do whatever you want to do, right? But when you own your firm, you make your own judgment call and you don't have to manage to the lowest common denominator. Now, to be fair, my shop certainly doesn't have 4 or 5 thousand advisors. When you have 4 or 5 thousand advisors, you have to manage to that lowest common denominator because it's that weak link, that chucklehead that's going to do something really not smart that could have some real implications for the firm. But when you're managing a smaller team or a smaller group, you have the ability to be more selective in who you're bringing on, and then you can also be more liberal with what you let them do. So I think it's just a matter of size, right? You just can't be a monster size organization and have that level of flexibility. It just doesn't work within the model.
100%.
Okay,
Couldn't
so
agree
again,
more.
that's just a
I think
little
it is.
taste of what we spoke about. We talked for about 30 minutes or so and covered a lot of different topics, not just this. But the one that we ended on this particular clip is the idea of the freedom to market your firm. And I speak to a lot of advisors. I've helped a lot of advisors go RIA, and certainly a higher payout is not unimportant, and usually what you'll achieve when you go RIA. But believe it or not, that's not always the number one. And in fact, rarely is that number one. Usually the number one driving force that I've seen, at least, for advisors wanting to go RIA is freedom. Freedom to serve their clients the way they wish, freedom to choose the products and solutions that they want, and very importantly, the freedom to market themselves, to put out a narrative that resonates with them and they feel will resonate for their potential new clients. And that is really where the RIA space shines. And we kind of focused on that. But do take a listen. It's right up on top. It's the number one podcast on the page right now if you go to goRIA.com. And we talk about a lot of things, not just the marketing aspect, but a lot of pros and cons, as there is with most things, about tucking in or building your own. But again, the good news is there are a lot of partners out there today, more than ever. I mean, my gosh, there's a ton that will either help you build your own or tuck into an established one. So give it a listen, and I will be back next Wednesday at 3 o'clock Eastern with some more content to share with you that's new then on goRIA.com. Thanks for joining me.